Standing vertical jump gives us a direct measurement because there's no calculations required to work it out at the end, which is good because it means it's quick to get the results and fairly easy. It's the same protocol, so it's pretty simple to keep because the only question is really if you allow arms to be used to gain elevation, which we allowed arms to be used, so therefore every time we'd have to let Josh use his arms for the results to be accurate. The confounding variables are just what footwear we allowed, so Josh would need to use the same trainers each time so he can get the same force. I didn't check how long he ate before, but I will check that and make sure that he eats for the same amount of time next time. And there wasn't really any motivation around him. There was no one really around us, which is good because it meant that he wouldn't jump higher because he was being cheered on by people. So that was good. And it was quite simple for the administrator to do. Josh hadn't exercised before this test, and this was one of the first tests we do. So therefore, next time we need to keep it as one of the first tests. And make sure he doesn't do exercise before. So because if he'd done exercise before, this was near the end, he might have a bit more fatigue, and therefore he wouldn't be able to generate as much power in his legs when he jumped. For the press-up test, we did it at the end and there was no one left in the hall because we started slightly later than everyone, so therefore there was no one cheering Josh on, and it was done in the hall, so it's the same weather each time and similar temperature each time in the hall, so therefore we won't need to worry about the weather changing next time we do the test. And Josh had the correct footwear. I asked him to use trainers, so if he wears the same trainers every time, he'll have the same grip, and if we use the same mat every time, it'll be fair. We kept quite control of the confounding variables because Josh told me he didn't have any injuries and he regularly does upper body workouts, so if he keeps up doing regular upper body workouts and doesn't get injured, then the test should be the same next time. But the only confounding variable there could be is Josh's weight. So say he puts on weight or loses weight by the next test, then it will be the results might be slightly different because he'll obviously have to push down more weight if he's gained weight, or he'll have to push on less weight if he's lost weight. So therefore the results might differ. So I could, for the next test, try and ask him to keep at the same weight and measure his weight from the last test and the next test to judge the difference and if that will affect his results. I didn't allow a warm up for the press up test or the standing vertical jump test, so therefore next time I shouldn't allow a warm up either, so that the tests are under the same conditions. Because if Josh does a warm up, then his results might improve next time, and it wouldn't be a fair test. The Illinois agility test. This is a direct measurement, and therefore no calculations are needed. The extraneous variables are, it was quite quiet in the hall. We did it in the corner on our own, so no one was cheering us on. Again, there's no effect due to the weather because it's indoors and the temperature will stay the same each time we do the test. Josh had correct footwear on, but he'd need to wear the same trainers next time so he doesn't get any advantage by having maybe more grip for any turns. And the surface wasn't slippy, and we'll be using the same surface each time we do this test, so it was fair. The confounding variables, Josh had no previous injuries, like ankle injuries or anything, which would stop him turning as fast. The only confounding variable is that he had no experience of this test before compared to the other ones, so therefore he might have been a bit wary of what to do or a bit unsure, so his result might be a bit better next time because he'll know what he's doing more, and he'll be quicker because he'll be more sure of which direction he's going in. It's fairly easy to keep the protocol of this the same because it's like a mapped out grid that you do, but it could be human error getting this wrong if you judge the distance on the tape measure slightly wrong. But if you have written down the measurements, you should be able to keep the protocol pretty simple and the same each time if you keep the same distance between the cones each time using the same tape measure. There's low administrator skill for this test. It's pretty simple. You've just got, as long as you measure out, as I said, the distance between the cones correctly. But there could be a human error with the stopwatch. So if your reactions might be a bit slow. But if the same person uses the same stopwatch on your phone, for example, each time, then the human error should be equaled out and you should have the same sort of reaction times. So therefore it wouldn't be unfair. Yo-yo test. So this is an indirect test because you have to do calculations after, which means it might take us a bit longer to do the test, and therefore it's a bit more complicated for the administrator because they have to work out the person's VO2 max. But the actual test is quite simple to complete for the administrator because it is a software online, so all they've got to do is play the software out loud and judge when people miss the bleeps, which is fairly obvious, especially if you're looking down a line. The extraneous variables are that we did it in a group of people with people kind of cheering on, so that we'd need to do it in the same environment each time with a line of people and people cheering each other on, because otherwise it would be unfair because Josh might have more motivation when he does it in the group rather than on his own. We did it at the end of all our drills, so we need to do the same next time because this might cause Josh to be more tired and therefore his results get worse. Might not be a fair reflection on his VO2 max. So if we do it next time, we've got to do it at the end again. The confounding variables are that Josh had no experience of the test again, and therefore he might have been a bit unsure, maybe in the rest bits between the beeps what to do, so therefore next time his results might get better because he'll utilize those rest breaks more. I didn't check what he'd eaten before, so I'd need to get Josh to write down what he had and when, so that he can have similar food at similar times next time, so his results not influenced. Maybe if he ate too much, he might have felt a bit heavy during the test, or if he hadn't eaten enough, he might have had much energy during the test. And then we need to make sure Josh does it in the same position in the line, because, for example, if Josh is in the middle of the group, he might be looking down each line all the time and it might slow him down, or he might get more motivation by seeing people behind him, or less motivation if he's near the back. Whereas if he's down the end, he won't be able to see everyone, and therefore he might have more motivation because he can't really tell whether he's doing well or not. And I didn't allow Josh a warm up for any of the tests: the yo-yo, the Illinois, speed test, or standard vertical jump test, or sit and reach, or the press up test. So this was the same for every test, but I'd need to make sure I don't give him a warm up for any of these tests again. This test was also not affected by the weather because we did it indoor. So the temperature will be the same each time, and the surface will be the same if we use the same hall each time. And Josh had trainers on, which was ideal for the test, but I'll get him to make sure he wears the same trainers each time, so he doesn't get an advantage of being able to turn quicker or turn slower because the shoes are a bit more slippery.